Hey everyone, I'm Paige Piskin and I'm a multi-platform augmented reality creator as well as an official Spark AR partner. I've been making effects for about 2 years after being first introduced to Spark AR at a social media conference in 2019. A few months later, early fall, I started building my first character effects and makeup looks as a way for myself and friends to try out different Halloween makeup styles. After launching my first effects, I started making my entire account about AR. I started to connect with amazing people from the Spark AR community from all around the world. Since launching my first effects, my designs have been seen over 50 billion times across platforms, and I've had some cool moments like seeing my designs used in music videos like Grimes' I Am Dark. I've also seen my filters shared by celebrities like Madonna, Kendall Jenner, Bella Hadid, Elon Musk, Billie Eilish, Sophie Turner, and many others. I've also been grateful to have the opportunity to work with musicians like Coldplay, Ashnikko, Bella Poarch, and brands like Bratz, L'Oreal, and Sol de Janeiro. It's been an amazing experience working in AR, and I try to learn something new every day. I'm so grateful for all the online workshops available, and I'm glad to be able to host today's workshop and hopefully teach something new that adds some value to your cyberpunk designs. Now, on to the workshop. Hey everyone, and welcome to my Cyberpunk workshop. I'm so excited to share this with you. I have created a project file that you guys may have seen by now in the assets folder that's provided with this workshop. And in that assets folder, you'll see all the different patches and textures and objects that I use in my project, as well as a sample file that has a couple of preset items just done just to make this tutorial go a little bit faster so that I don't bore you guys with too many details and talk too fast. So I'm going to try to talk a little bit slower in this workshop and show you guys some really important things that I've just had so much fun with in some of my latest effects, like creating a render pass object for a background and adding some effects like blurring to the background that blurs the entire scene and creates an illusion of depth of field, and using particles to create things that look like shooting lights, and also applying the Cyberpunk Mox face mask and adding effects to it to make it look a little bit more realistic, like a drop shadow. And a couple of different ways I do that is by using a face texture and by using render pass to actually create a shadow from that mask. So those are some things I'm going to focus on in this workshop. Additional stuff that I'll go over a little bit is adding directional lights, creating a glossy texture for the skin, working with a normal map. And you'll also see some additional textures in the folder, like a custom HDRI texture that can add the same background neon image to the face. And we'll also have some tattoo textures in there too, so that you could use those if you want to create neck tattoos and chest tattoos. I also have a neck object I created that is for the neck specifically, so that it has the curvature of the neck instead of being a flat plane. So hopefully that is some stuff you guys can use for your cyberpunk filters, and I'm really excited to get started. If you guys have any questions after, feel free to ask, or feel free to save them for later, or even reach out to me after the workshop. So let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to my workshop. So we are going to get started. Right now I have the sample file that I put in my assets folder for you guys that is preloaded with a couple of just some basic settings just so that I could save a little bit of time and focus on, I guess, a couple of the more important design things that I want to teach in the workshop. So what you guys will see when you open this up is we have our scene panel set up with a background null object, a person segmentation null object, and some overlays. Underneath that, we have the post-processing effects, which are overlaying the entire scene. So everything that's underneath, including the background I created, will have these render past post effects happening on top of it. So for example, if I add a blur, it'll blur the entire scene, or a glow, it'll make it glow on the entire scene, including the background. And same for other things like glitches. So as you can see, the background's glitching, which is what makes render pass so cool. So for now, I'm actually just going to turn off those settings just to keep it off so that I could focus on what we're going to be doing here. And we're just going to get started. So what I've already set up is this background null object that has a canvas in it, a background, which is just the camera. And on top of that, we have a pink emitter and a blue emitter, which are these lines that are shooting behind me to look kind of like, I would like it to look kind of like car lights, like on a highway, just kind of blurred. And that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be blurring that with render pass. And then we have a neon sign, just that's going to also be blurred in the background. This will need to be tracked to the person's head because it does contain text, but I could do that potentially later. So just to show you what this looks like, when you click on that, you have your camera texture, associative alpha. It's always important to have associative alpha on any textures that are camera or face tracker texture and stuff like that when you're using render pass, or else it'll have a little bit of an error with the lighting. So another important step, that's something I always try to do, is to turn on capabilities to face tracking and make that on high instead of standard. So that will make sure that all of our elements, like our face masks and textures and everything, are tracking well to the face. So just to keep going, I have that all on a layer of its own called layer background. Then I have another layer for this null object called person segmentation null. That's everything in there is layer 1. And then I have another canvas over here, actually another null object over there called overlays, and this is going to be on its own layer as well. So I'm just going to rename that, or layer 2. Okay, so just to go back and just start moving into the next section. So in this person segmentation null object, we're going to put our makeup and everything and our face mask. I don't have much time, so I'm going to be just jumping into things like a face shadow and glossy skin and just kind of showing you those face meshes I've already put in the project, like this and like that. And so those are things you could toggle on and off. And we have a mask shadow that we're going to use once we have our mask in here. So just to give you a summary of what this is, I have a face occluder, which we're going to actually set the depth settings to on. And this is going to be something that we use with our mask so that the mask has the proper depth. And for retouching, I created a very simple retouch. There's way better retouches out there, but I just wanted to create something that you guys could use for this workshop. So right here, what we have is the face extraction render pass connected to the camera. And then we have blurs. These blurs are in the Spark Air library. I also included it in this file, so you could see all the patches I use right here. So that's that blur. And what we did is we connected the blur to a shader render pass from the face extraction. So it goes face extraction to blur, blur to shader, then we blur it again, then we apply another shader, and then we blur it again. So each time we do this, we blur the scene even more. So that's how I got this smooth skin effect. So then just to keep going, I think that's everything that I have set up render pass-wise so far. So I'm just going to jump in now to the actual tutorial and start doing the couple of things I'm going to teach. So in this workshop, I'm going to be focusing on two things that I want to share with you guys that I think are really cool. And that is taking your background and making it a separate render pass object and applying different effects to just the background. And also just making the mask look a little bit more realistic, while adding things like shadows and glows and stuff like that. So those are going to be the two main things I focus on in this workshop. Everything else is just kind of like a bonus, like the neck tattoo and stuff like that are things that I might not have time for, but I love. So I included those textures here in our assets folder, so you can see this is the neck tattoo I drew and the chest tattoo. And there are going to be other tutorials like Isabel's that might cover a little bit more of tattoos. And I also have some links to other more tutorials on things like that cover that a little bit more in depth if you're interested in learning more about how to properly set that up. So first, let's just jump into adding our face mask. So to get the face mask, you have to go to the asset library and then search Cyberpunk 2077. This will load all the Cyberpunk objects, and the ones specifically for this contest are these ones over here. And in order to participate in the contest, you have to use one of these assets in your project. So if you're going to be making an entry into the contest, you have to make sure to use something from these Cyberpunk assets that they have, the official Cyberpunk assets, like those ones. So I'm going to take this Mox piece and I'm going to put this into the face tracker. So now we have our mask in there. And as you can see, it needs a little bit of styling just to get it to look proper. So I'm going to open that up and I'm going to start moving things around. So the first thing I usually do is I take these glasses and I actually move them out because I'm going to just be creating a shadow later and I'm not going to use them for that shadow. So I'm going to also create a couple of different materials for this so that I can use different depth settings for different pieces on the face. Because for some things here, I need the depth, like the parts that go around the jaw, and then other things I don't need to have depth settings turned on. So what I'm going to do is actually take this and I'm going to create a brand new material. And we're going to remake all those settings again in physically based. So I've done this a couple times, so I'm just going to show you how I do it. So I take these metallic and roughness settings and I move it to 100. Then for the texture, I put in texture 0 here. For the normal map, we put that there. And for the ORM texture, I believe that's that. And then for our environment texture, I have a specific one that I really like, and I typically have been using sunset for metals and stuff like that because I really like the way lights hit it. And now I'm just going to turn off the depth settings for that. So now you can see it's not getting cut out on the back of the head. So it looks pretty nice. So I'm just going to, let's see, make sure everything's good. Okay, and I'm going to keep it on RGB and on alpha. And now I'm just gonna, every other piece that I want to use that material for, I'm just gonna select it here quickly, just by clicking on one and then clicking on the last one. I could select them all, and then I could click on this Mox material and replace it with material 9. So I typically name my materials, but since I kind of just sped through this, I didn't, so I'm just gonna do that really quickly. Okay. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is we're going to take these glasses and move them down because I think they're kind of funny that high up. So I'm just going to take them and reduce it here and see how that goes until I like, oh, until I like how it looks. You could also, in this panel here, grab the arrow and pull it up. So I usually pause and then I just pull the glasses up till I like how they would look. So maybe somewhere like that. And then I move it out till about 0.005. And now I'm turning my camera back on, and then I just rotate my head to see if the positioning is nice. I can even move it, I think, a little bit further out. And now it's like slightly off the face, and it's a little bit lower. So now for this material, I'm actually gonna do another material for the glasses. And I'm just gonna set this to physically based. Again, the same settings, texture 0 here. Normal is the same. Or use that one. And then for the environment, I'm going to set it to the sunset. And I'm just going to change the color. Actually, just for the frame. So I think for the frame, I can use the original Mox material. And then for the lenses themselves, I'm going to turn off the depth settings and change the color to like a pink. And now I'm going to actually put this on multiply instead and then reduce the opacity. And now we have our glasses. And they look cool in all different ways, so you could try out whatever you think looks cool with your project. But I kind of like the pinks. All right, so before I get stuck there, I'm just going to jump out of that. And now we have to set up our armature. So what we want is this to move with the jaw. So right now it's not, so what we have to do is link that up in patches. So what we're going to do is take the face producer patch, and we're going to click on face tracker. Then we're going to go to interactions and patch and create producer patch. And we're going to take this and just move this somewhere else so that doesn't get in the way of these other things. And I'm going to grab this neck auto rig, which is made for that specific, what's called Mox headpiece. And we're just going to move that here. So now what we're going to do is connect these things to where it says it here. So we're going to click face and drag it to face, and rotation and drag it there. And then it tells you where you need to connect to the actual jaw piece armature. So I'm just going to click expand all to open that up. You can also close it by clicking collapse. And I'm going to just click so we need the bust A position here. Then we have the bust C and B rotation. And then over here we have the jaw rotation. So I'm just gonna take the jaw rotation and connect it there. So just in case I move too quickly, to actually put the jaw rotation into there, we wouldn't be dragging and dropping it into there. We're gonna be actually just clicking this arrow right there, and it's gonna make it pop up in patches. And then we're just going to connect it there, arrow to arrow. And now it moves with the jaw. So now I just want to move this off the face just a little bit. Let's see. And so now it's moved off the face. It might look different on the phone camera, so you want to just make sure you test it on the phone and test it on some of these other videos to see if it's lined up properly. So right there you could see it's a little bit low for the face. So on the real time it's showing it a little bit different. So I'm just gonna see it on 0. We'll keep it like that on 0.005. And as you can see, I have some lights set up that are hitting this mask really nicely. So the way I set that up is up here in directional lights. To see what the lights actually look like, we could turn on a, just for temporary, a standard mask. I'm going to click here, create a new material. This is just to show where the lights are hitting. So I like to set up a standard material, just a standard face mesh, just so I could see where exactly my lights are hitting the face. And you could use rotation up here. I just clicked on this little rotate button, and then you could rotate these lines to change where the lights hit the face. And the same thing for here. So I'm just going to leave that as is. I'm going to get rid of that face mesh that I just made, wherever it is. And just keep it that way. So what I like to do is put a hair segmentation over it so that it covers the glass, whatever these are called, the arms, and have that so that it looks a little bit more natural. So I'm going to do that as a final step, but that's just to give you a heads up of where I'm going with that. So right now I just want to show you some of the things that I created for the face. So I have a couple of face meshes here that add a little bit of gloss. Like this one is a lip gloss, and it's actually using an environment texture on flat, which is this little ring that I created that looks kind of like a lip gloss. I like it because it's a little bit extra. It's like a little bolder. And then I have this face mesh that puts some highlights with a normal map on the face. And this just has a very basic skin texture that I found on Google when I was looking for normal maps. And I just multiplied it, and in Photoshop I just created a pattern out of it, and then I just put it on the face. And so that's in this setting here. You could adjust that, you know, the strength of it, the roughness and everything, you know, how strong it is. And so then we have another one called Glossy Skin that is just using a different environment texture. And you could play around with these settings and adjust them to your liking, you know, modify colors and things like that. And then I have my mask shadow. And this shadow I just created in Photoshop and just kind of tried to line it up to where the shadows would be on the face. And so you have one on the jaw specifically. So that looks a little bit dark, so you could just lower that till it looks comfortable for the face. And so the last thing I did in my example was add glow effects to the light parts of the face because I wanted to just have them pop a little bit more. So a way that you could do that is adding planes. I believe it could be done with render passes as well, but just a little simple way to do it is to just add a plane like this and then add a material. Click flat, and then hit, where's my little image of the glowing dot? So I'm going to take this dot, pick a color for it, turn it on add, and then you can move it to the jaw. So now it'll rotate with the jaw. And so we just want to move that down. Back a little bit, and you could just resize it so that it's not too big. And so you could do the same thing and repeat for the upper part, for the nose, and for the cheeks here. Add a couple more glows, so I'm just going to duplicate that. And now this one, I'm just going to move these two out of the jaw and back up to the main piece. And so this one we're just going to move all the way up to the top and pull it back. And then just change the settings, the scale, so that it looks more like a line. That looks great. And so now this one I'm going to move up. Okay, and now you could add 2 more if you'd like to these parts of the mask. So just rename this glow. And to have it be more accurately placed, you could click Action up here, Position on Face, Mouth. And I'm just going to go click Add. Okay, so one thing I want to do is just duplicate that, so I'm just gonna, this is gonna be glow. I'm just gonna duplicate that and position this as well above the lip. So I'm just gonna take this, click on this add, copy. So on my computer I'm using Command C, but I believe that you could go up here and click copy, and then paste. So you can go up there and click paste, and then connect to this as well to first value, and then connect it here. And then what we're going to just do to move it to the other side of the face is go to the X part right here. This is the X. I'm just going to click this and remove that minus. And so now it moves there. So one thing I noticed is that it's a little wide, so I'm just going to make that 3. And I'm just going to rotate them. So for the one on the left, let's see. Rotate it 20 degrees, and then the other side I'm going to go negative 20. And so now they're kind of on an angle. Okay. So those could be perfected a little bit more, but I'm just going to leave it as is just for now and just reduce the opacity a bit. Okay, so now for another thing that you could do to make the lights look kind of cool is add an animation to the texture. So what you want to do is just right click on here or double click on this patch area, and we're going to click animation. We're going to look up loop animation and then transition. Make sure those are connected, set it to number, and then we're just going to take this and click there. Now I'm just going to make this mirrored, and I'm going to add in the alpha that little dot, glowing dot. Connect the value to this yellow box, and now you can see it pulses with the light, which looks pretty cool. So one last step I wanted to show that I thought was kind of fun is taking this and adding a face shadow using render pass. So we're just going to jump into a couple more things just so that I could do that. So the next step is adding skin segmentation. So if you want to add a tattoo, you're going to want to have a inverted skin segmentation so that you could occlude the body and the tattoos and with the clothing. Sorry if I say that wrong. So we're just going to click visible and go create a new material. Flat, and I haven't been naming my materials, but I'm just going to call this skin seg. I'm going to take this and turn it to camera texture. And then for an alpha, I'm going to do skin seg. Where's that skin? Oh, there it is. Okay, and we're just going to invert that. And so now we've lost our cool render pass background, or the one that we're going to render pass. Nice background, and we have the regular background now. So what we want to do is bring that background back. So if we had tattoos and stuff, this clothing will go on top of it. So you can see it's going on top of the mask, which makes the mask already look a little bit more real because it's being blocked by our clothing. So I'm next going to add that background back in. So what I have to do here is create a new material, and this is going to be called background RP, and we're going to take that background, the whole entire null object, and drop it into this patch. So drag it and drop it in there. So that's just clicking on it, holding it, and putting it there. And now we're just going to do a scene render pass. So double click and type in scene render pass, and then connect it here to the scene object. And then we're going to connect that there. And now we're going to click alpha, and we're going to do what's it called, person segmentation, and flip it to invert. So now we have our fun background back. So one thing that I want to do is blur this background. So right now you could see it has no blur. So what we'd have to do is add that blur in by doing the same thing we did for the skin. So I'm just going to do 2 blurs on this. And you could add more if you wanted to have a more dramatic blur for depth of field. So what we do is just connect it here. Then we're going to do shader render pass. Move that over. Connect there. And now I'm just going to drop that to 0.5 to reduce the size. Now we have this background, and so now you can see those particles moving behind me again. And everything's looking really nice. You could also add a shadow to the face mask, and the way that I do that is exactly how I've been doing everything with the render pass, is just adding a blur. And what you would do with that is take this Mox, and just like the background, drop it in here, and do another scene render pass. Oops, just click and move that to scene object. And then I'm going to take this face shadow, create a new material for it. And I'm going to call this face shadow, or yeah, face shadow. It's really the mask shadow. And I'm just going to blur it. And this time I'm just going to do 1 blur. Just reduce the quality of it, subtract, and now I have what's kind of like shadow, and I'm just going to make that 1 for the blur. And just lower that. And I'm just going to move that down by actually just scaling it. And so now we have like a little bit of a drop shadow for this face material, and it looks kind of cool. So that's really everything except the hair. So the hair is the last piece that we have to add. So we're just going to create a new material for that right here in hair segmentation. And we're going to use camera texture, but we're actually gonna do it in patches, so skip that. We're gonna turn on the hair segmentation, and we're gonna take this and find the camera texture. So what I usually do is I go to my texture section and take camera, and I just drop it there because it's somewhere else in patches, and that's how I find it. So just drag it and drop it. It'll take you right to where that is. So I'm gonna take the patches we have, adjust color shader, and I'm going to bring in my quad gradient and multiply them by each other. Take the camera texture and put it here. And then for hair segmentation, we're going to take this and click that so that we could get that to pop up in patches. And now we're going to have our texture be replaced. And so I'm just going to turn off depth settings, and now we have the hair looking pretty cool. I'm just going to color it to look like one of those Cyberpunk characters in the game that has this kind of cool teal and purplish looking hair. And just go pink and blue. Purplish, pink, and blue. And so now to adjust the lightness and the brightness of it, you could adjust it here, which makes it look a little bit more vibrant. Okay, there we go. You can actually remove, I usually desaturate it so that it makes everybody's hair roughly the same color. And there we go. So that's basically everything. I think I may have time to cover a little bit of a tattoo, but if I go over, I might have to stop. Actually, I might have to save the tattoo because I do have some more things I wanted to show you. So one last thing that's kind of cool with Render Pass is you could find it, obviously, by clicking that little arrow there. And then you could go into filters and put a preset right in between, and that'll add a preset to your whole scene without you having to apply that LUT to the camera texture on the rectangle and then each face mesh and so on. You could just put that preset overlaying everything. So I created a LUT, so I'm just going to move that there. And then I'm going to grab that fast color LUT and patch, drag my image to texture, and for LUT you could put that here or you could find it there, and then connect. Okay, now we can see that this LUT is overlaying the entire scene and just gave everything a little bit more pop. So without it, it looks like that, and with the preset, it looks like that. So everything's just slightly more vibrant. And you could add more effects in this post-processing now. So if you wanted to sharpen it, you could sharpen the scene or blur it. And I usually like to add a glow. Yeah, it looks kind of good. Low in this one. You could add up the saturation a little bit. And I usually add a little bit of a vignette. I like the fisheye settings, not like this, but actually the opposite. So I'm just going to move that to 0.1. So see before and after. And then I'm actually going to turn the sync off and make my scan lines not as strong. So just soften the scan lines up a bit. And then I'm going to test out the glitch. Glitch is like a little bit high, so I'm just going to reduce it. I'm going to raise up the scale. And then turn my chroma down. So now we have this really cool effect that's got a cyberpunk kind of feel. The last thing that you could add if you want to is add some tattoos. In Isabel's workshop, she's going to have some tattoos in hers, so I believe she's covering that. If not, you could always use some of my materials here. I have a bust occlude right inside the project, which you would take that and drop that in the face tracker, and then you can use this neck for the neck tattoo and use a plane for the chest tattoo. So I will add a couple follow-up tutorials to my YouTube channel that cover a little bit more about that. So I hope this helps you get started with your cyberpunk effects, and I can't wait to see what you create.